Hello everyone, welcome to this video. So in this video, I am going to show you how to package your React application as a desktop application using Electron. So let's say you have a React application and you basically want to convert it into a desktop application. You can use Electron to do that, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video. So Electron is an open source framework, right? It's a framework you can use to build cross-platform desktop applications using web technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Right, it basically combines Chromium engine and Node.js runtime environments, and that allows you to create native desktop apps with your existing web development technologies or skills. Now, there are so many applications that were built with Electron. VS Code, as you can see here, it's an example of one of the applications that were built with Electron. Discord, Slack, WhatsApp Desktop, Spotify, all those apps were built with Electron. I have a React project here. As you can see, I've opened this in VS Code here, which I'm going to use. Why would one want to package their app as a desktop application? Right? So there could be so many reasons why you would want to package your app as a desktop application. Right, so maybe you want to access some systems API directly, file systems, or you want to use some notifications, system trace, and stuff like that. Or maybe you want offline support, right? Offline functionality, an app that works without internet. You want to maybe access some system resources. Could be many reasons why you want to do that. What are some of the pros and cons of Electrons as well? Maybe we should talk about that as well. Now, the first thing is cross-platform support, right? You write once and then you can run it on Windows, Mac OS, Linux. There is no need to write different code for different platforms. You are also using the existing web development skills that you already have. If you know React, if you know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you're already using that skill. There is also a rich ecosystem behind Electron, access to NPM packages, a lot of them, web libraries. You can also develop faster. Your app is basically going to look the same on all platforms. Now, what about the cons? One of the things you are going to mostly hear is the fact that Electron apps are resource heavy. Right? They use a lot of memory, a lot of CPUs, and that's because I mentioned they use the Chromium engine. Right? So Chromium engine is very, very heavy. So it uses a bit of resources, and the application sizes or the bundle sizes are typically larger. We are talking about hundreds of megabytes of installer files or bundled files, and that's because it bundles the Chromium engine as part of the application, so it runs on the Chromium engine. So your application sizes are going to be a bit larger, and because of that, sometimes the performance is also a bit slower than the actual native applications. Yeah, so those are some pros and cons of Electron. I'm going to be using Electron Builder to build and package our application, our React app. As you can see, there are other build tools that you can basically use to package your Electron application. I'm going to be using Electron Builder, but you can also use something like Electron Forge or Electron Packager. Those are other tools you can use. Now, Electron Builder is the most popular, the feature rich. It's great for complex builds. Electron Forge is actually the official tool from the Electron team. It has a simpler setup and stuff like that. Electron Packager is much lightweight. It's for basic packaging functionalities. But in our case, we're going to be using Electron Builder. You just have to have maybe Node.js version 16 and above, and you also have to have a React application like mine, the one I have here, which I'm going to show you very soon. And you should have a bit of knowledge, basic knowledge in TypeScript and JavaScript. Now, if you don't know TypeScript, that's fine, but then with JavaScript, you should have a bit of knowledge about JavaScript. So let me show you the application we have here. It's a simple React application. As you can see, we don't have any Electron package or any Electron setup in here yet, but the app is actually running on Disport. It's a Vite React application, and it's called Stockflow. It's an inventory management system, or like a stock tracking system for tracking stocks. Let me show you how the application looks like by opening the preview. So this is the preview of the application. Let me go to dashboard. Now, when you come to dashboard, you can see it's for tracking. It tells you total product, stocks, sales for today, and all that. All right, so you go to products here, and you can see some of the products you have. Right, so this is an application I am building. It's a work in progress application. So for example, like if you have a product like this with some variations like colors, you can maybe edit and add more variations and the number of stocks that you have for that particular product. Right. So let's go back to VS Code and then let's see how we can convert this to an Electron application. First of all, we need to install some dependencies. All right, so dependencies that we are going to be needing. So I'm going to keep the development server running, and I'm going to open a new terminal here, and this is where I'm going to install the dev packages that I'm going to need. They are dev packages. We have to install them as dev packages because they are only for development. All right, so I have 5 packages that I'm using here. All right, so the first one is Electron. All right, so this first one here is the core Electron framework that we are going to be using. Now, this is the tool for packaging and building our installers, that is Electron Builder, as I mentioned. And this one, Vite plugin Electron. Now, that is for Vite plugin. That is a Vite plugin for Electron development. The next one is this one, which is the Vite plugin Electron renderer. So that enables the Node.js APIs in the renderer process. Now, every Electron application has the main process and then the renderer process. So this one enables Node.js APIs in the renderer process. And this last one here, it's for cross-platform environment variables setting. And so because we are building for cross-platforms, we want to find a way to set environment variables on any platform we want to build for. And that's what we are using this for. So I'm going to hit enter to install these dependencies. And then once they are done, we can actually go ahead and create our files, the files that we need. All right, so you can see those are done installing. We can go ahead and open package.json. All right, so yeah, we have these new libraries here, Electron, Electron Builder. And then when you come down here, we also have these Vite plugins. Now let's go ahead and then create the files that we are going to need. Now inside the root of your application, you are going to create the first folder. All right, so here I'm going to create Electron-app. So I'm going to create another file called electronbuilder.yaml.yml. Now I'll tell you about this shortly. I'm also going to create another file. This one is for the TypeScript configuration for Electron. We already have tsconfig, tsconfig.json here, but we want one for Electron. So I'm going to say tsconfig.electron.json. So tsconfig.electron.json for our Electron TypeScript configuration. We also want to create, for example, we have this one here, which is for Vite, right? So the configuration for Vite itself. Now this is for when we want to build application for web. We want to have one for Electron. You can basically change this for Electron. You can change this if you want your application to be entirely Electron. But in my case, I want to have a web version. I want to have the desktop app as well. So I'll create one for Electron. All right. So this one I'm going to call it vite.electron.config.ts. One more file. So for the renderer process, we need another config file. So that is going to be called vite.renderer.config.ts. Those are the files we are going to be needing. Right. So those are all the files we're going to be needing. But inside Electron app folder here, I also need main.ts. This is going to contain the main process entry points. We also need a preload script. These are the two main files that your Electron apps are going to need. The main entry point and then the preload script. This is going to contain the main entry point. This is going to contain our preload script. As I said, Vite renderer config is basically the config for the Electron renderer. And then this one is going to contain the Vite configuration for the main process, right? So we have the configuration for the main process and then the configuration for the renderer process. Now you can see that here we have the main TS file. This is a TypeScript file. Here we want to write it in TypeScript. By the end of the day, Electron is going to need a JavaScript file, not the TypeScript. All right, so this is going to build it as a JavaScript file. We are going to go to package.json and we are going to add a few things here. Here you have the name of your application, right? So I'm going to change this to stock flow. That's the first thing. I'm also going to add main, right? So the main entry file, where is it going to be located? It's going to be located in Electron app /dist/main.js. It's going to be in a dist folder and the file is going to be called main.js. All right, so that is the reason why we have this type of configuration here. I'm also going to change the version to version 1.0.0. And yeah, it's also good to add a description and author. Okay, so here, as you can see, I have added a few scripts here, right? So I've added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these 5 scripts here, I'm going to explain to you what they are doing. So the first one, Electron TSC, it's Electron TSC. Now that compiles the TypeScript files for Electron, right? So whenever we want to compile the TypeScript file, this is the command we are going to be using, tsc-p tsconfig, right? And we are pointing to the Electron config file, right? Right, and you can see that here we are basically running that command here when we are building the dev or the production one, right? We have that command here. So it is going to make sure that it first of all compiles our TypeScript file to JavaScript first, right? And that is what this is pointing to. Electron dev is going to be used to run the Electron application in development mode, right, with hot reloading. So whenever we want to run the app in dev mode, we're going to do Electron dev, and that's going to run it in dev mode with hot reloading. So whenever there are changes, it's going to reflect automatically. Right, now this one, Electron build, is used to build the renderer process for production. Right, so we have this one, and then we also have this. This one is used to create the unpacked application in a dist folder. Right, so more like the executable file, the exe file. And when we run package, this is going to build the installer or the distributable file. These are all using the Electron Builder configuration YAML file, right? So you can see I'm pointing to Electron Builder.yaml, Electron Builder.yaml here for this and this. That's because we don't have the build configuration in package.json, so we have to point it to the configuration file. And this is the way to do it. So we do --config, and then we point it to the file. Take note of that. We need to start adding the content of our files. So let me start from here. All right, so I'm going to get the content here, and I'm going to paste it so that I can explain to you what they are doing. Okay, so yeah, there's no need for me to type every single line out because it's just going to waste a lot of time. I can just bring the content here and then explain to you the most important things here. This is a bit similar to the tsconfig file that we have here, right? The one that comes with Vite app automatically. This one is specifically for Electron. We are saying that the output directory to compile the files to is here inside Electron app dist. So if the folder is not there, it is going to create it automatically. All right, and we are using CommonJS. That is the module system we want to use. And yeah, everything else is going to be like the same as what we have here. Now here we want to include all files in the Electron app directory, and we want to exclude node modules, the build outputs. That is the main build outputs we're going to have. When we run Vite build, it also creates a dist app in the root folder for the actual application. We don't want to include that. And we also don't want to include the dist folder in Electron app. Okay, so this is how the TypeScript configuration file for our Electron is going to look like. So next, we are going to look at the renderer. Right, so yeah, let's start from here. And after, I'm going to make all the code available to you so that you can just copy and paste the contents there. You don't need to like know and write all these things out yourself. You can just copy and paste it and then change what is relevant to your project, maybe the naming and stuff like that. Right? So yeah, this is the content of the vite-renderer.config file. It's not saying a lot, but here the most important thing here is this, right? So this base property with dot slash. Now this is essential for Electron to load assets correctly. All right, and we use relative paths for Electron renderer. We don't use absolute paths. Most of the time, React uses slash, right, which is absolute path by default. But we want to use relative path because this is what Electron needs to be able to load assets files correctly. So make sure the base is dot slash. Now here we are just adding some convenient imports using alias at, right? So we can just do at component, and yeah, that's basically what we are doing in our app. Right? Yeah, so you can see we have the at. So we just have to make sure that TypeScript is able to recognize that. We want to exclude some packages for pre-bundled, right? So here, optimized dependencies. Some packages actually work better when they are not pre-bundled by Vite. A typical example is our icons library, right? So we just want to exclude that. And this is the output directory for the build React app. So that's so let's see what the content of the Vite Electron config is going to have as well. Okay, so for Vite Electron config, we have quite a bit here. Yeah, the most important thing is first of all, you have to make sure this is a relative path and the entry point. This is the TypeScript. And so it is pointing to main.ts in Electron app. And then here, the output directory, we specify it here as well. This is for the preload script, right? So the entry point for the preload script, we specify that here. You don't have to know everything that's going on here. You can just copy and paste and then make sure the folders are in the same folders as mine, or when you change them, just make sure you point to the correct folders here, right? This one is for hot reload. When you do axe.reload, it's basically notifies the renderer process to reload the page when the preload script actually built completely. So there is one here. This is for the main process. This is for the renderer process. We have the same alias resolver here. All right, so let's actually go to the main file, right? The main process file. That is one of the most important files. I'm also going to get the content and paste here, and I'm going to explain to you line by line the most important things you need to take note of here. And as I said, I'll make the source code available so that you can actually use the same thing, the same setup. At the end of the day, I mean, I'll mention some of the issues you are likely to face and how to fix them as well. So let's look at the content of main.ts step by step, right? And I'm also having a type error here, so I'm going to fix this one. So property resource path does not exist on type process. Yeah, maybe I can just do dot as any here just to resolve this. Yeah, let's start from here. So here we are actually getting or importing some packages. First of all, we are importing Electron part and then file system here because we're going to be using these. We need to define some paths for different environments, right? So for production environment and then for development environment. So here, as you can see, we are defining the paths, right? So the dist path for different environments, as for production and for development. So for development, it's going to be dot dist, and that is because here we're going to have the dist and then the main.js. This is at the end of the day going to be built as main.js inside dist folder, as I showed you. All right, so we're going to go up into the Electron folder first of all, and then we will go up into the dist folder, which is going to be in the root when we build the application. All right, so in development, it is going to be this, but in production, it is going to be relative to the packaged app. Now, we also need to specify the public part. So the public part is going to contain the assets. All right, and for development, it's going to be dot public. That is the folder we have here. But for production, it is going to be just public. So here we are setting the environment variables to be used throughout the application. It's going to use this part and then the public part. And then we're also setting the Vite dev server URL as well. Right, so here we are setting the environment variables for use. You can see I've added a comment up here. Right. Now, when we come down here, this is where we are actually referencing the main window. We declare the main window here. We initialize it to null, but here is where we are going to actually create the window, the main window down here. All right, so here we just declare the main window. And then when you come to this function, create a window, this is where most of the things actually happen. Now here we determine the icon paths based on the platform, right? So the icon which is going to be used, I don't have these icons yet. I'm going to add them because Windows actually don't use PNG files. Windows use the ICO files. Right, so I'm going to have to convert my logo to an ICO file. I'm actually going to do that now. ICOconverter.com. Right, and then here I can choose my file and then it's going to convert it to an ICO for me. So you can see here, I've uploaded my file, which is logo.png. Okay, so when I click on convert, you can see that it has created the favicon ICO here. I think I had one for a previous app, so you can see it's added one here. So I'm gonna get that into VS Code. I just dropped the ICO file here. I'm going to rename it and remove the so I have favicon.ico, which is this one. And I am also going to, okay, so instead of icon, let me also say logo.png. Or I mean, I can just copy and paste this one. And then I'm going to rename this as well. So I'm going to say icon.png as well, so that we have the two. So whichever one we use would work. So I can leave this one as icon.png. You can see it's pointing to public. Now here we create the window. We specify the default window width, default window height, and then this is the icon. All right, so the icon part, and then some preferences. All right, so node integration false, context isolation true, preload dev tools. Now here we want to only open the dev tools in development, not in production. You don't want to open dev tools in production, in your production app or in your packaged app. So you would only debug in development. That's why we check this flag to make sure that it is not packaged. Here we are actually hiding the menu, right? So as you can see, I've added a comment here. So if you want a more cleaner look, you want to hide the menu and probably add your own menu, because we don't want the default window menu that comes with Electron. So we are going to hide them by default. Now here is where we load the app into our window, right? So here we check vite dev server URL. So we check if we are in development. Now, if we are in development, we are going to load the development URL. We are going to load the dev server URL, right? So for example, it is going to basically load this, all right, and we are going to get it on vite dev server URL. So this vite dev server URL is going to give us this URL, http localhost 5173 port. Now, if we are not in development mode, it means we are in production build, right? We are in production or we are in a packaged version. So we are going to load the build files. We're actually going to load the build files. We specify the index part, that is a part to index.html, right? And then we load that here. Now, if for some reason there is an error, it is not able to find the index file, we can actually log an error here so that we can see it, or we can even add a file here, an error page or something like that, so that it will show in our window that there is an error or something, which is mostly what I do. But this one I want to keep it simple, so let me just put a console.log here. But you can put you can basically put an error page here to be loaded if there is an error, so that you can see what is wrong. And you can also do the same thing here. Okay, so down here we have some app event handlers. Now this is basically saying that on Mac OS, right? So as you can see, we are doing Darwin here, which is Mac OS. So on Mac OS, keep the app running even when windows are closed. That's mostly how the behaviors in Mac OS applications are like. So you keep the app running even when windows are closed. Down here, you can see we are calling the create window here, right? So this is where we actually create the window when the app is ready. Now, down here, we also have this activate, which is also for Mac OS mostly. This is basically saying that it should recreate the window when the dock icon is clicked. I'm not using a Mac OS right now, so I can't show you what I'm talking about. But I think those of you who are using Mac OS would know this behavior. Unless you shut your PC down or something, the window keeps running behind the scenes. And when you click on the dock icon, it is going to be recreated. Yeah, so this is everything we have in our main TS file. Hopefully you understand. I'll make the code available, so you can just copy and then paste. Make sure you make some few changes here to fit what you want. Now when we go to the preload.ts, here is where like the communication actually happens, right? So it's more like the bridge that communicates between the React application and your main process, yeah, which is the Electron main process. Here we're going to have some communication methods or functions basically that tells Electron what to do when it gets that tells Electron what to do or what to send to the main process and all that, right? So it's like the in and out communication that happens between your React application and the Electron's main process. It's actually happening. It's actually what this preload script does. So here, you're going to be seeing a lot of IPC communication methods. Now, IPC is for inter-process communication, so you don't have to know this. You can just copy and paste. It's going to work the same way. So this is basically for sending messages to the main process. This is for listening to or listening for messages. This is for listening once. So when you do once, this is for listening once. And yeah, this is for removing listeners. Yeah, so you can see from the name, this is for sending messages. This is for listening for messages, multiple messages. This is for listening for messages once, and this is for removing listeners. Now, when we come down here, we have this context bridge, which is for exposing API to the renderer process, right? So we use context bridge here to expose the API to the renderer process. This is also what you're going to be using to expose the environment variables to the renderer process. So use what we call context bridge to do that. I mean, we are also doing IPC render.on, right? So we have more like a channel name here, which is main process messages, which basically tells you that this is listening for messages from the main process. Yeah, so that's basically everything, right? So you don't really need a lot. Now, finally, we are going to add our configuration, the configuration file for our application, for our Electron application. This is going to be much simpler to follow, so don't worry about that. So this is our YAML file for Electron Builder. So this is what Electron is going to look at and use it to build our application. So yeah, here we're gonna go through step by step, right? So let's start from the very top, right? So here we have the app ID. So here the app ID, you want to make sure that it is following this pattern. And yeah, this is a YAML file, right? By the way, so if you know about YAML files, it's very similar to JSON files, just that these are indentation kind of way. This is the key, this is the value, this is the key, this is the value, right? So yeah. All right, so let's start from here, app ID, right? So the app ID is going to follow a pattern like this, right? So for example, your company, so let's say I have a company called, let's say ABC Limited, Ltd. All right, it can be like this, and then the name of the app is called stock stock flow. This is the product name, right? So stock, not stack, can't spell, so stock flow. And here contains the copyright notice. So this is going to be the artifact name, which is more like your setup name, your installer name. So here I like to make it all lowercase. So I am going to do something like stock flow setup, and then it's going to add the version and then the extension, which is the exe, or if I built it for a different platform, it is going to use the correct extension. So you can actually put any name you want here. It doesn't have to have dashes. You can actually have something like stock flow setup, right? Uh, like this. It doesn't really matter. I like to keep it like this, all lowercase with dashes. And here, where to actually output the build packages, right? So I'm just saying you should put it under release build, right? So if the folder is not there, it is going to create the folder and put it there. But I can create a folder here called release. That's where all my release builds are going to be put. So here it's going to put a build folder, and then all the versions that I have will be built there. All right, so we want to include the built React application. We want to include the Electron files. We want to also include the dependencies. Right, so you have to package the node modules because this is going to be used as a desktop application. Right, so you have to make sure we are packaging all the dependencies we are using from node modules as well. Right, and then package.json as well. Now these are the extra resources. So all the assets, right? We specify them here. So from assets to assets. Right. So here, what we can do is we can also create assets inside release like this. Right. And whatever we have in public, we can put them here. Right. Yeah, and then we can specify from assets to assets here. So this is the source directory. This is the destination directory. So from here, and then when it packages it, it's going to put it under assets as well. Now, if I want, I could specify public, right? But yeah, because the build files are going to be here, we just put it here. Now, here is where we have the Windows specific configuration, right? So this is for Windows. So for Windows, we specify the target as NSIS, right? So the most popular and common one used mostly is the NSIS, right? And then here we want to support 64-bit architecture. We have 32-bit for Windows, 32-bit and 64-bit for Windows, but we want to support 64-bit architecture. And then this is the path to the icon. As you can see, since the icon is showing here, it means that the path is being picked up correctly. So release assets favicon, the release assets favicon, this one. You can specify and point it to the public one if yours is in the public. But we have to specify the NSIS installer configuration here for Windows, right? We want to say that one click is false. When we say one click is false, we basically want to allow the user to choose the install location. So we want to allow the user to choose the location they want to install the application, right? So if you want that, you have to set this to false. This is basically saying, do you want to install per user? We do per machine and say false, so that this is going to install per user and not per system wide. Allow elevation if needed. And here let user choose the install directory, right? So this is for install location, but then this is the directory. These ones are self-explanatory. Create desktop shortcut, and for start menu shortcut as well, you set this to true. Now here is the shortcut name. I would change this to stop flow. Alright, and installer icon, uninstaller icon, and then the installer header icon, that is the window, the installer window, the header icon. So we are pointing all of them to our ICO file. Delete app data on uninstall. You can set it to true or false. It depends on what you want to do. Right? If you want to keep user data on uninstallation, you can set it to false. If you want to delete it on uninstallation, you can set it to true. I can leave it as false and run after finish. After the installer is done installing, do you want to run the application after? So it's going to give you a checkbox where it's going to be checked automatically, but you can uncheck it if you want. And then when you click on finish, it's going to run the application automatically. Menu category, right? That's the start menu category. You can basically give it any category. Let me just give it a name. Stock flow, same stock flow name. But if you have an actual category for your application, you can give it. Let me just say stock flow. Display language selector, I'm setting that to false because I want it to be English, right? So the installer language, I'm setting it to English. And I'm setting license to false here because I don't have any license file, right? Now here is a configuration for Mac OS, right? So target DMG icon. I mean, Mac OS supports PNG icons, so yeah, I can specify the PNG, and then the category is where you specify like a category for your application, right? So in Mac OS, it's actually helpful if you specify the category, right? So we're going to say public app category business, right? Because this is a business application, so yeah, we will give you that category, and that's basically it for Mac OS. Now for Linux, we only have to do target, right? We specify assets. It's going to pick an icon from assets. So yeah, that's all we need to do for Linux and Mac OS. The publishing configuration is not actually required. It's optional, right? And this is basically mainly used for when you want to create more like a release flow. Alright, so if you want to specify a release flow with let's say GitHub and GitHub Actions or whatever, if you have your custom server you want to use to create like releases or versions, different versions, you can actually specify that kind of configuration here, right? Maybe in another video I'm going to show you how I do mine with GitHub to create releases, create release tags, and then upload the artifacts or the installer files that I built to GitHub. Maybe in another video I can show you that, but I'm just going to leave this section. So I can just remove this section from here. Right, that is basically everything we need here. So our setup is complete, right? We have everything we need. We have all the configurations set up already. We can go to package.json again, just to see the script we have here, right? So you can see the configuration file is pointing to electronbuilder.yaml, and these are pointing to the correct configuration files as well. So we have our setup actually ready. We can actually go ahead and test this and see if this is actually working as we said. So first of all, let's run Electron TSC. All right, so I'm going to do npm run. All right, and I'm going to hit enter. So let's wait and see. Okay, so the first error we are getting is a TypeScript error, right? So these things that we have here, because we are using TypeScript, basically, we have these types errors. So this is saying implicitly, right? So these parameters have any type, so we have to specify them. So let's go here, and here, what I can do is I can just say any. So yeah, these are some of the issues you would run into when you're using TypeScript. It's just type error, not an actual error. So yeah, so that's line 12 and line 15, which I believe I have fixed. So any. So let's go ahead and run this again. All right, so this time it worked. All right, so that command actually works, which is fine. And because it worked, if we go here, right, if you go here, you can see that we have a new folder here, dist, which is the folder I'm talking about. If we open the dist, you can see that we have the compiled version of our main and preload scripts. Right, so here it's a JavaScript file, and then here we have the preload script as JavaScript, right? So all right, so those two files are going to be created for us all the time. Right, so yeah, now let's go ahead and run the second command, which is dev, right? So we want to start the Electron application in development just to see it's working in development mode as well. Now, instead of doing npm run, I can just hover and then click on run script here, which is going to run the script for me. Yeah, start the dev server. Because it is running, it is already running, it's going to start on port 5174 because 73 is taken already. My Electron app is actually starting up. You can see, let me bring the window. You can see it's trying to start up here. Yeah, you can see so it is able to load the application in development mode. And this one is easier because it's just loading the dev server uh, in here. So that is cool, right? So yeah, we can test it in development. You can make changes and then see it running. And you can see that we don't have the menu, right? The default menu that comes with Electron here because we disabled that. Right? And when it opens like this is the default window width and height that we set. And so it basically opens like this, which is very, very cool. Let's go to light mode. Nice. So development is working. We can visit all our pages actually. Let's go to sales, stock overview. Yeah, everything looks good. Okay, cool. All right, so I can close this. Let's get back here, and then I can stop this one. And yeah, let's actually build for production. All right, for sure. That's the main thing. All right, so we want to build it. We want to try and build it for production. All right, so this is where most of the time we are going to be running into issues. So let's see if our setup is working. So I'm gonna first of all run Electron build. Okay, so you can see it didn't really take long at all. So first of all, you can see here that it built the actual application, right? And that's because we have built the Vite built here. So it built the actual application here. So we have the application built, and we have the latest version of our app, the latest built version of our app. So we need to actually try and package it now. All right, so we need to run the next command to create the executable file. So let's just wait a little while for this to finish. But you can see here, if we follow the steps it is going through. All right, so use Electron Builder. All right, so this is the version of Electron Builder it is using operating system. All right, so loaded configuration. It's using the Electron Builder YAML file, so it's able to find that file. And writing effective config, executing Electron rebuild, installing native dependencies, completed installing dependencies. So here is where it is packaging, and you can see it is packaging for Windows 64-bit architecture. Right, with this Electron output directory is here. Right, so release build, and it's going to create a folder called Win Unpacked. That is where we are going to find our files. So for Windows, we are going to find it in here, Win Unpacked. And yeah, it's trying to download some things. So let's wait for this to finish completely. Should be done in a few seconds. Okay, so you can see that here it is completed. We did not get any errors. All right, and if we go here, if we go into release, into build, now we have this folder, right? When unpacked. Now if we open that folder, you'd see that we have the stockflow.exe file here. So what I would do is just have to check if this is working, if this is running okay, before I actually create the installer file. Right, so I'm going to go to review in Explorer. Right, so I'm going to bring that here. Right, so this is it. And I'm going to try and then run this. Now you can see that this is using a default icon. I'm not sure, but it said that here it says default Electron icon is used, right? So file source doesn't exist, so it's using default Electron icon because the application icon is not set. I'm gonna check the reason why, but yeah, that was a warning, not an error. So let's go back to the folder and let's check that the app is running fine before we go and fix the icon issue. I'm gonna double click to run it, and this should be able to open the window and load the build files for me correctly. Okay, so it is coming up. right here. Now, this is where most of the time, I mean, I run into this issue previously when I was trying to build Electron apps for the first time. I run into a lot of issues with now the application will get stuck here. You'd think that it is going to load, and it doesn't really load. It's just going to be blank forever, and you begin to wonder what is the reason why. Right, once the app is not loading, the build app is not loading. And yeah, you are going to be running into this issue a lot with Electron applications, right? Especially when you package your applications, you're going to be running into this kind of issues a lot when your application is blank and it's not actually loading and you don't know why. Right? So let's actually go into why we are having this issue. We're gonna go and look at our configuration files again and see where we actually made a mistake. Now, the first thing I'm going to do to debug this issue is to go to main.js here part, and I'm going to enable DevTools temporarily. So you can see that when we are running in development, we don't have an issue because it loads the dev server application. All right, we don't have an issue. But in the packaged version, I mean, it's just blank, and we need to be able to debug. So we can temporarily enable the DevTools here just to check if we get any errors in there. And so I can comment this out and then just put through here just for now, so that we would be able to open the dev. We would be able to open the dev tools, and I'm also going to add open dev tools in detached mode, right? So let me put a comment here so that I can remove it. All right, so I can use when I can do web content dot open dev tools, and then I can specify mode detach here. It's to open the dev tools in to detach the dev tools window from the main application window. So I'm going to save this one. Even though DevTools actually opened, but it says it was disconnected from the page. And yeah, all right. So that is not helpful. The most likely reasons why we will not have we will not have the app loading correctly is the fact that it's unable to find this index.html file. That is the entry point of the application of our React application. And so if it is unable to find this one, then basically it's not going to be able to load it. Right. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do dot slash here, right, and then I'm going to point this to index.html. It's supposed to be this here, right? So if we go back, it's supposed to point to this, HTML, index.html, right, and not just index.html. I'll make this change, and then I'm going to build again. Hopefully this time we should be able to fix it. All right, so you can see that it's done building again. So let me actually open this one again. Hopefully this time it is supposed to. Hopefully this time it runs. All right, so let me go to Reveal in Explorer. Double click to run this again. It's trying to open here. Oh yeah, and there you go. Now the application is running. All right. Oh, I just closed it. Let me open it. This is the app. You can see it is running. Right. Very, very cool. So now we have our executable file running. So we can actually package this as an installer file and then send it across. It looks good. Okay, so yeah, now we've managed to fix that issue. You can see that this is how the part is supposed to look like, right? So it's supposed to point to the index.html file in dist, and it's supposed to. And let me show you the reason why it was found on this part instead. All right, so if I go back here, so let me open this folder again. All right, so here inside the win pack, this is where the exe file is. This is where we actually run it, right? But you go to resource, you can see that we have this single file. You can actually see the index.html file or anything like that, right? Here, you cannot see them here, right? And that is because they are all inside this app.asile file, right? So it was baked into this. So everything was built here inside the app.asile file, and there's no way to run and see the content of this file, right? There's no way to run and see the content of this file, but I can show you a command here that you can actually use to see the content of the file. So first of all, let's actually navigate into that file. So we need to navigate to release, right? So cd release. I think we need to go into release. First of all, we need to go into build. All right, and then we need to go to, okay, so inside when packed, we need to go to resources. So cd resources. And now that we are in resources, all right, so you can use this command. So npx asar list app.asar. Right, and I mentioned that we packaged our node modules also inside that folder. Right, so our node modules is actually also there, but our node modules files are a lot. Our node modules contains a lot of files, so we want to exclude the node modules content. Otherwise, we are not able to. We will not be able to find the files. The node module files is going to take up the whole screen, and we can't actually see the files we want. So we want to exclude the node modules content. Right, so we can use the select string here, like if you're using PowerShell, and then we pass the not match script here. If this is not the same command as yours, you can look it up on the internet, but here it's going to be the same. All right, so if I hit enter, let me make this a bit bigger. Yeah, so this is going to list out the content we have in our in app.asar, and you can see here that we have this assets, these files in the assets, or all of these files are in the assets, including the index.html file, right? So that is the reason why we need to make sure that now from here, from the main.js file here, we need to go up again, and then we go into this index.html file. So this is how you're going to be able to find where your index.html file is, so that you can point it to the correct location. Otherwise, your Electron app is not going to actually it's not going to load. Right. So now that our application is able to run, we can now go ahead and then we can package it as an installer file, and then we can distribute it. Now I was also having the icon issue. I want to fix that before we actually package it. So let's look at the reason why we are not seeing the icon file. It is using the Electron default icon. I am sure you probably saw it, but I think the reason why I am not getting the icon is because the assets folder here, I named it wrongly. So it's supposed to be assets, but I made a typo here. I put T here, right? So I need to make sure I rename this well, because that is what these are pointing to. Right, so release assets favicon. I've just fixed the folder name, and this time it should work. So when we open, you can now see that this is able to create the file, the exe file with our icon, with our icon. So we can run this again. And I also disabled the dev tools that we enabled for debugging. Right? So the dev tools will not be opening our production again. Okay, so you can also see that the the icon is actually also here, right? And yeah, this is the one app. By default, it is using the system team. I can change it. All right, so finally, let's create the installer file, the distributable file that we can share with people. All right, so for that, we have to run the package command. So we're gonna run the script. We specify the artifact name as stock flow setup, right? And that is what it is going to use to create the setup together with a version. So yeah, when it's creating the executable, just the executable file, it uses the product name. But then when it's building the installer, then it's going to use the artifact name here. Okay, so that is done here. And you can see that here we have two new additional files here, right? The one we want is this one. Right, so let's open the folder again. Let's go back to build. All right, so you can see that now outside the WinPack here inside the build folder, we have this stock flow setup 1.00 version 1.00.exe. Now this is our distributable file, right? This is our installer file. So we can copy just this file and share it with anybody, and they would be able to install our application, right? And you can see the file is 90 megabytes because I mean it's an Electron app. So yeah, it's quite large. 90 megabytes is not that bad, but yeah, it's still not. I mean, it's still quite large. All right, so here, if I double click on it, it is going to open the installer window for me to install the application on my system and use it whenever I want to. This is the installer file, right? So here it says, please select where you wish to install. So only for me. Then I'm gonna go next, so you can see that all our icons are being, all our icons are showing here on the header, and then the app icon as well. Right, so here you can change the location by clicking on browse and then choosing a location, but this one I'm gonna keep it in programs. So I'm gonna click on install. So this is gonna go through and then install it, and then we can open it on our PC. So the app is done installing. You remember the run after finish property, the run after finish option, right? Yeah, that's the reason why we have this checked. So if you want to run the application after it is done installing, you can basically click on finish, or you can uncheck it. It's not going to run. I want to run it, so I'm going to keep it checked, and I'm going to click finished, and this is going to try and then run my application. So let me click on finish. So this has run my application. So as you can see, so this is actually not this is actually the installed file, right? The installed application here running. Let me close it and then let me show you. All right, so if I go to start menu and I search for it, I should be able to find it. All right, so you can see that is showing up here. So I can click on it to open it again. Here is it. All right, so I can basically open it anytime I want. All right, so it's now a desktop application that I can use it on my PC. It's gonna work the same way. All right, so you can also see it at the recently added section here. If I show you my desktop shortcuts, you can see that that is here, right? So that is my desktop shortcut showing here. So I can right click and then go to uninstall. So this is going to open the uninstall window so that I will install this. I can uninstall this. Okay, so you can see it's part of my installed applications here now. The version is here, the name is here, the icon is also here, right? So I can click here to uninstall, and it's going to try, and then it's going to give me the uninstaller, as you can see here, right? And I can click on next, and then it is going to uninstall it. So when I click on finish, you can see it's gone. All right, so that is basically it. So that is how you convert your React application to a desktop application using Electron. You can see the process is not that difficult. You just have to make sure that you just have to make sure that you are setting the right path to like right files, and you're gonna be good to go. All right, so I'm gonna make the files available, the source code available for you. So if you want to like use the configuration files, if you want to use the configuration files that I have and everything, I'm gonna put the link in the description for you to access that. Yeah, but thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave your comment below. If you want me to record the tutorials on the version release workflow, you can let me know in the comments how to release new versions and implement the auto updater with your application, so that when new versions are released, your customers get a pop-up and then they can install the new version. If you want to know how to do that, let me know and I would record a video on that. But for now, thank you for watching, and I am going to see you in the next video.